Hello and welcome to Mama Drama Trauma Academy. I'm Tammy Taylor, your teacher and host, whose only qualification is having healed my own and successfully supporting others to do the same. Mama Drama Trauma Academy
is now in session on the topic of
how empaths with the mother wound learn how to live by intuition. I'm learning to trust my intuition more every day, and it's teaching me that I'm a divine child in every way. Keep going, keep going, keep going. You know you gotta keep going. I'm learning to trust my intuition more every day, and it's teaching me that I'm a divine child in every way. Hey, here at MDT Academy, we're talking about empaths with the mother wound. If you are someone who accurately feels the feelings of others and you have a consistent and persistent feeling of a lack of maternal presence, provision of care and protection, you are in the right place. Today we're talking about the emotions we have difficulty managing until we have healed from mama drama trauma. And that's what we're here to learn how to do. Today we're really focusing on intuition, and the difference between the two is that emotions are what our ego, the lower self, who we identify ourselves to be this lifetime in this body, communicate to the soul. How we feel, kind of a terrestrial support system of our energetic regulation, how the body is feeling instinctively, happy, sad, mad, glad. This report that is constantly being uploaded to the soul are our emotions. We want to learn how to be particularly aware and astute about our emotional state at every state of our lives, at every turn, at every juncture, being extremely self-aware as empaths so that we do not confuse our emotions with others. Now, intuition are those signals, those messages from the higher self, the soul, downloads to the ego. So that oversoul, that part of ourselves that releases the lifetime we are identified with, eventually, I call them skulls in the ground, and most of us have many. As old souls are empaths, we've had many lifetimes to develop this level of sensitivity. About 5% or so of the population, 20% are highly sensitive people. We are a subset of sensitives of this designation called empaths. Now, managing our intuition is what we're talking about today. We're talking about how we as empaths learn to live according to those downloads, how we learn to identify those downloads from other information we pick up throughout the energetic frequencies, the circuitry going on around us that we're so hypersensitive to. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Should I try something new? Really don't know what I need to do. Don't really know. Don't really know. I don't know why. Don't really know. Don't know. Can't really say. Should I? Don't really know what's gonna happen. Okay, so here's the quandary with us. On the one hand, we have this hypersensitivity that is dysregulated because of trauma. And on the other hand, because we are so sensitive, we have the ability to receive information outside of the five senses. That sixth sense. That's the sixth suit of the Mama Drama Trauma Healing Oracle deck, Emancipation. E in the word aspire. This six-letter word is the acronym for each suit. We've talked about the suit of acknowledge in the podcast, What Healing Gives. S for self-inquiry, let them be right. P, processing, talked about mind bending to redefine ourselves. I, integrity, Saturn moon, the cosmic calculus or the astrological signature of those of us with the mother wound. And R, resurrection and rebirth last week. How can we trust our intuition when we can't get off the trauma train? So that podcast was all about how to identify, manage, and effectively regulate the toxicity of MDT to get off the trauma train. And today, in the E-suit, the self-empowerment, the self-emancipation, and spiritual liberation that comes from that when we do know what to do. Let's get started. You know how we do. The Divinity Identity Mantra. It is the basis of our emotional regulating work and rapid trigger resolution. Recovery back into divinity identity. Let's go. I am a dearly loved divine child of the great Mother, Father, God, who is never judged, condemned, or left alone. Those 8 phrases make up the 8 lunar cycles. The Emancipation suit represents the waning gibbous moon cycle. That is a cycle through the healing suits, so to speak. It is one lunar phase of the entire lunar cycle, so there are 8 phases to the lunar cycle. We have 6 suits, each containing these 8 phases, and we call them cycles because each suit is a cycle we process over and over again throughout our lives. That's why it's particularly useful to know our moon sign and how we are responding to the actual lunar cycle. With emancipation, this inner eye energy that we are able to identify as a release, that waning gibbous moon, that phase after the full moon is the first phase of release after the flower has bloomed, so to speak, and the first petal begins to fall. That's emancipation. It's broken free, or the fruit, the first fruit from the tree after the tree has bloomed. And that fruit begins to fall, that first fruit, so to speak. The Emancipation suit goes through this entire cycle of release, starting with its own new moon in this cycle, its own crescent first quarter, waxing gibbous full moon, waning gibbous third quarter moon, and balsamic moon card of emancipation. What is emancipation? In simple terms, it's freedom, but there's a big difference between a proclamation, divinity identity mantra, for example, and its application. We're here to learn how to apply the principles of each of the energetic frequencies of this mantra. Emancipation represents the never being condemned phrase. I am never condemned. And in that recognition, that soul alignment, in that awareness, we are able to free ourselves, not just in the proclamation of the mantra, but in our actual application of the belief in our lives. I do not believe I am condemned for calling mama drama trauma what it is. I know that this is a soul contract I'm here to resolve as an old soul who must learn how to evolve in self-love and spiritual independence. That's why the subtitle we have here is Self-Emancipation and Spiritual Liberation, because as a slave descendant of the United States, I know freedom goes two ways. It's me standing up for myself and others respecting my boundaries. I respect my divinity and allocate my energy to protect it based on my requirements for each situation, relationship, or event. This ongoing process in the lives of every liberated human being is what emancipation is all about. Divinity is no respecter of color, gender, social status, bank account. It doesn't matter. Divinity resonates with whoever resonates with it. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, once we get that our core belief, which is divinity identity, that is the core belief of empaths, people who feel the feelings of others. We reach out because we feel the pain of others. We have unhealthy relationships with others because we want to heal that pain, because by doing so, we vicariously heal ourselves. This is in the old frame of mind. This is in the toxic frame of mind. Last week, we talked about getting off of that toxic train because, look, have you ever noticed that sometimes you can observe someone that may appear to be in dire circumstances, but they're rich where there's lack? You ever notice that? You've traveled to a poor country and then you are just, you're struck with respect for someone's just spiritual constitution within themselves. That sense of self-respect. They could be driving you around, pedaling on one of those little go-karts called or whatever like that, and just completely dignified in who they are as a human being. Rich where there's lack. Have you ever seen somebody in a situation surrounded by people just in fear? And we don't have to go too far these days to see that. But then there's just one face in the crowd, just somebody moving over there a little different frequency is just a little higher vibe, and you notice that they're courageous in the midst of fear. You ever notice somebody who is just right there with everybody else, surrounded, affected, and with us just tremendously discombobulated because of nasty attitudes and hate and fomenting anger and these things that we've grown to be conditioned to be okay about, been conditioned not to speak about, to leave unspoken, been conditioned just to allow to be unexamined and unchallenged, but yet we foment in it and are saved by the presence of someone full of love where there's hate. That's the power we have when we do the work to let go of the mother we want and accept the one that we have, the inner mother, great mother, permeating Yin, the Holy Spirit, the Comforter, our intuition telling us it's time to examine your situation, baby. Time to challenge your circumstances, sweetheart. Time to be more self-aware so you can take care of yourself and mother yourself in a healthy way. So we're going deeper into why and how we know this is the healing, letting go of the mother we want in order to accept the one that we have, that inner mother. That's healing for us. Because once we've done that, we're not triggered by any expectations that our birth mother or any other person who plays the position or the role of mother is not behaving the way we would like. We're taking care of that. We're using the gifts, talents, abilities, skills acquired over lifetimes to do that. Reallocating our energetic resources from the externalized vicarious healing of others, hoping somewhere, some way, somehow, someday it comes back to us. And it never does. Not in the capacity that we need it. Being truly emancipated from MDT is what this is all about. So last time when we were talking about the trauma train wreck of being stuck in that state of unchallenged, unexamined, taboo living, we said that today we were going to explore that conditioned response, right? And how to free ourselves from that. So as empaths with the mother wound, we know that we accurately read the emotions of at least one person in our lives. Okay, we do accurately read the emotions of our mother, that person that plays the mother role in our life. We know that we do that because that is how we've survived. By being her emotional barometer, we know her better than she knows herself. We take care of her emotional needs. We absorb them when she is too dysregulated so that we can be fed, so that she can do what she needs to do to provide for us at the bare minimum. That's what I've noticed in my practice, like my own personal experience, the guilt. And we talk about the shame, blame, and guilt fuel of the MDT cycle that keeps us stuck in it here a lot. But that's because in my practice, it is the primary foundational obstacle to healing, to letting go of the mother. Because at the bare minimum, we talk about maternal presence, provision of care and protection. We need provision of material care to survive. And so many with MDT feel a tremendous amount of guilt because they received it. And who am I to criticize someone who obviously is doing the best we can? And as empaths, we accurately assess that to be true. It is absolutely true. Our mothers are doing the best they can do. We can feel it. That's why we want to supplement. That's why we are driven to compensate for what we know they do not have the capacity to give us. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about how to use this emotional barometer to thrive as divine children of the great Mother, Father, God. That's a low-end use of that ability. And we all have to do that to survive. Now that we have, how do we kick it up a notch? Well, the first thing, using the Mama Drama Trauma Healing Oracle deck is going to help you do just that, because we're in sensitivity training here. We do not know how to use our empathy, our empathic capacity in ways that serve us. So the first thing that this is going to do for anyone who uses it, anybody can use the deck, because it's going to help with more emotional awareness, more intuitive fortitude. But it being specifically designed and downloaded from Great Mother for empaths with the mother womb, it's going to help you to regulate this high sensitivity in ways that we can check in with ourselves. We can manage well our emotions and effectively use them, as opposed to not, which is what we're conditioned to do. We're conditioned not to trust what we feel. We try to examine or challenge being mistreated, and all of a sudden we're crazy. So we out the bat cannot, if we expect to be healed, expect others to come along with us after we've gotten off the crazy train. We get off the train by ourselves. Okay, everybody else is going to stay on it. So that's the first thing about really learning how to use our intuition. We're already getting the downloads, and how we distinguish between our intuition and our emotions is that emotional happy, sad, mad, glad is coming and going like the clouds in the sky. Muji talks about that a lot. These clouds passing. And that's what our emotions are. It's easy for us to distinguish between that and a feeling, a sensory download that gets dropped into our gut that says, don't go there. Don't even have that conversation with that person. Change the subject. Or we get the immediate visual image of needing to be someplace in the next several days that we hadn't planned on going in order to get something that we need. Okay? And so through all of the five senses, we have clairs. We have a clear sense of. Many of us have multiple clairs. I'm clairaudient. If you haven't noticed, with the listening and the music, and that's what the staying in the ethers, the musical ethers is my spot. But I'm also clairsentient, and so that's that gut. Some people are clairvoyant, okay? Now, these are psychic abilities. That does not make us psychic, but all empaths have some capacity for psychic ability, these clairs. All psychics are empaths, not empaths. Not all empaths are psychic. So you need to be clear about these little details. Go ahead and click the Facebook, click into the Instagram. What's posted there is always about the previous or the next podcast for clarification on some of these points. Moving forward, the two subscribers here are either individuals who are really working on establishing those healthy boundaries, okay? So kind of stepping back from everyone in the train and kind of getting in the aisle there and looking out the window to see, where I'm going to get off. I might get off at the next stop. It might be the stop after, but I'm getting off. And so that's one subscriber. And the other subscriber is the person who has been off the train for a while. They've gotten off and have been doing some deep internal work for a while. And now, after doing that work, they're ready to re-engage. They're ready to get on another train, go in a different direction, seeing what happens, seeing what comes up, seeing a new journey, a new voyage in life, and have a bit of trepidation. Last ride wasn't so great. And so there's this externalized process going on. And so I want to give you a few tips, tools, and techniques today that you can identify through the Emancipation suit, that inner eye suit, through these 8 phases to help you, whether you are in the self-forgiveness phase, forgiving your own shame about not challenging MDT earlier, or even some of us are still feeling the criticism and the harsh reaction to our needs from our mother, that shame, feeling bad about who we are, blame and guilt, being blamed, and feeling blamed. Those of us who are in the self-forgiveness phase, in the guidebook, you may have noticed, especially if you're someone who is familiar with the lunar cycle, each suit begins with the balsamic moon. It does not end with the balsamic moon, because the balsamic moon, like the old folks used to say, is the crying moon. That's the moon that ends the cycle. So during the time of this recording, we just are in the middle of a lunar cycle. About a week ago, we had in the Vedic astrology, the Jyotish, I'm a student of that. We just had our, there's a 24 degree difference, 24 degree difference between tropical astrology, which often puts our sign a month ahead. So at the time of this recording, we just had a Cancer new moon and are about to have a Capricorn full moon, and actually another Capricorn full moon. So we'll be having a blue moon situation coming up here. It's going to be tremendously powerful, because this whole thing with 2020 started January 2020, and of course that kicked off the pandemic with that powerful Saturn conjuncting Pluto in Capricorn. So these reverberations that I am referring to with the lunar cycle happen cosmically as well as in our inner cosmic space. And how they line up is why it's useful to know our moon sign. Getting back to the 2 students, the subscribers who are working with self-forgiveness, who are most people, as the guidebook illustrates, will always start with the card that represents the acronym letter. That will always be the balsamic moon card. Acknowledge A is going to be the balsamic root chakra card. So we're talking about these energies and frequencies. These chakras are represented by their respective colors. Self-inquiry for S, of course, is going to be the balsamic moon for that suit. Processing P for the gut chakra. Integrity for the heart chakra, the green suit. Resurrection is the blue. That throat chakra energy is the balsamic moon card. And today we're talking about emancipation, that lavender purple card. That is balsamic intuitive downloads that we're receiving about freedom. So what is this freedom? In simple terms, whether you're working to release through the lunar phases, as you do when you start with the balsamic moon, then you go to the new moon, you're actually going backwards, like the nodes of the moon. The north and the south nodes of the moon travel in reverse. And this is a evolutionary process for the soul. When you look at your north and south nodes of your astrology chart, you're actually looking at the past lives of your soul's south node, or K2, in the Jyotish. And the north node is telling you where your soul is evolving to, what type of astrological sign energy it's evolving to, Rahu. So mine, for example, is in K2 in the South Node. I have had many lifetimes in entertainment, many lifetimes in rulership, many lifetimes being responsible for other people, making other people happy, having big families, having many children. Okay, my South Node is in Leo. And my North Node, my soul is evolving to Aquarius, being more serious about serving the greater good. So, likewise, the balsamic to the third quarter moon process that we have going on here is all about releasing the old way of doing things until the last card, the third quarter moon, is the card of release. So each cycle we want to release. Emancipation goes to the release card, and every release card or third quarter moon card is a law card. Now, I call it the lawsuit, and that doesn't make us have 7 suits in the deck, but it is an energetic card in every suit that does justify its own designation. The law card in the Emancipation suit is the law of divine child. So as a divine child who is growing in trusting our intuition every day, we are doing the daily practice, the daily work of ego-soul alignment. Ego-soul alignment is all about the self-awareness not to accumulate other people's toxic sludge. We go into it knowing that we are emotionally dysregulated because we are holding on to shame, blame, and guilt, and we are doing the inner work to release it. Okay, if we've already done the inner work to release it, what we're doing with lawsuit energy is we are upholding the law. Our work is upholding the law in our lives. That piece about living our divinity identity. That piece about actually forgiving ourselves when we break the law, when we are not feeling or behaving like a divine child, when we are not feeling like doing or have forgotten to do the work to be ego-soul aligned, to regulate our emotions, in other words. It's okay and it's natural, and if we didn't need emotions, we wouldn't have them. But we realize that because we have an inordinate reaction to situations and circumstances, that we anticipate that triggers or our unhealed wounds are going to show up. And so even when we are in the healed state, as I am, we have to continuously forgive ourselves and others for not abiding by the law. And the law is that we are all dearly loved divine children, the great Mother, Father, God, who were never judged, condemned, or left alone. That's why it's our core belief. We've been learning to live the law many, 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 many lifetimes. And this one is specifically about having a soul contract, experiencing mama drama trauma to fortify, to refine our understanding of our divinity. Take the mama away, what you got? You have deep inner work to do to be healthy, happy, and whole, which is our birthright. So the daily practice is all about the self-awareness and acceptance of our accountability and our responsibility to be ready at any given moment to immediately detoxify, to achieve emotional regulation. We want immediate emotional recovery. We know that we can go on cycles because sometimes when we do a reading, we have a lot of blue cards from rebirth suit showing up, telling us that we're on the trauma train. And so since we don't know what Great Mother's going to tell us in any given reading, when we see that, we're able to say, okay, I have a lot of releasing to do. You know, I gotta go in and I gotta get this baby. But in order for me to do that, I'm gonna have to push. I'm gonna really have to let go of a lot going on with this thought, with this inquiry, with this question that I have with Great Mother about this situation, this event, or this relationship I'm asking about in this moment. She's responding to me and she's telling me that I need to rapidly ego soul align. That I need divinity, identity, recovery, toot sweet, to recalibrate my energies for a more useful purpose in my life and in the lives of others. So when we are conscious of this, we're able to shift in our own unexamined and unchallenged perspectives of who we are and what we're doing. That intuitive state opens up more for us because we're constantly creating room for it. So this is why in our healing cycle, it always lands or it always ends at freedom because we're expanding our inner energetic circle of freedom, because we are letting ourselves and others off the hook constantly. How are we doing it? Third point. Okay. We are no longer, we're no longer beholden to the roles that have been assigned to us and accepted by us as this old version that we have to play out in order to satisfy others. We're no longer beholden to that. So that's the freedom that we are manifesting for ourselves and for others especially as we're moving out into the world and we're working from the lawsuit first and then going back to balsamic, which is what you're doing. If you are on that healing side, you are again upholding the law, and the law is we're all divine children of the great Mother, Father, God. That's hard to see when you're on the other end, but you can operate in that when you're ready to come out into the world. When you are at the point where you're just like, okay, I've been doing healing work and it's not an anxiety about coming out in the world. It's not a nervousness. It's not, I can't be alone. It's none of those things that are going to satisfy the infinite manifestations of the inner child, that ego, that identified self. Okay, and that's where the self-awareness comes in. And knowing the difference between emotions and intuition. Okay? There's a big difference. And that's what Great Mother Speaks, those of you who are familiar with Great Mother Speaks on Facebook and Instagram, is all about. Her messages are all about just teaching that. That's a whole teaching about the difference between emotion and intuition. And so when you get that, you're able to really tap into that intuitive living. And so we don't just want to know about our intuition. We don't just want to sit on our gifts, talents, abilities, and skills that we've earned. Many of us have taught these things in the past, lifetimes in the past, and they are veiled this lifetime to refine them. That's just like, when I was coming up, magnet schools were really popular. And I don't know what they're worth now, but, they took you out of your environment and put you in a whole nother learning curriculum. And, you were somewhat, smarter than average kid, and you would have excelled anyway if you had some decent teachers wherever you went. But being taken out of that environment that you were used to things going a certain way and this, that, and the other, it upped your game. Same thing, you leave your town and you go to college. Ups your game. You all that past stuff, the way you did things, is veiled. You got to learn a new way to use those very same gifts, talents, and abilities. And that's a mild example of what we're talking about, lifetime to lifetime. So the third way of touching that intuition is being aware of when you are upholding those roles that you've just played, and not allowing yourself to say to your children, your lover, your mother, your neighbor, your coworker, that's the way I thought about doing that in the past, but I'm going to start riding the public transportation, or I'm going to start taking my bath, or I'm going to change my schedule. And I know this might be inconvenient, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about what we need to do, because I need to start at X o'clock instead of such a clock. And so that type of language is also in the Oracle deck that you can just use. You can just sample. It's there. You can just use, when you're reading the guidebook to explain each card, you have a sense of really what's going on, and you just use it in your life. That's how the messages work. A lot of this, I'm just repeating the guidebook. So you want to be aware of your emotions, not to self-judge or self-condemn, but to distinguish between yours and others. That's the hallmark of an unhealthy empath. Healthy empaths distinguish between their feelings and others. Those that have left the train, have been off the train, have been really recalibrating with the world in a new way and are going back into the world with this new understanding, with this new sense of self-love, with this new sense of spiritual independence, need this language to interact with people. And upholding the law of divinity identity is all about recognizing, even though others may not recognize that they are divine, we do. We know they are. And we treat them as such, whether they recognize it or not. Hey, I got an announcement I'd like to make. I am approachable. I love people and the work I do. So I want to hear from you. Feel free to comment and contact me with questions about MDT or the deck. Some subscribers have requested a Zoom class to practice reading spreads. So let me know and I'll be happy to set it up. Some want to layer with other decks and have questions about that. And some people just want to know, what are these lunar cycles? I just think I can get it if I get the lunar cycles and the juxtaposition with the chakras. Let me know. I'm here to help. Okay. I wasn't always at ease with who I am and what I do and all of that and everything, So today I hope that you are getting some tips and tools and techniques on, how to share your beauty. Empaths are just deliciously beautiful people. And we want to powerfully shine our lights in the world. It's not that sun that doesn't see anybody else. It's that sun that just absorbs everything and just processes it right back out. There we go. And that's what we do. We just are recyclers. We're emotional and intuitive recyclers and getting better every time we do it. We're just evolving through it. And the mother wound, this injury, this cut to our psyche, this trauma, this soul dissociation is a lifetime. And for many of us, I know for me, I've done many past life regressions and did a podcast with one of the best, Patricia McGivern, that helped me really understand, these are lifetimes that we learn these concepts, the word says life is just a blink of an eye. How much are we going to learn in a blink of an eye when we're speaking in soul terms? So that's where the self-forgiveness and self-compassion comes in. That's the emancipation. The emancipation suit transforms that injury, that insult to divinity into butter. That butter. It transforms it on a daily. You work it. It will work in you. So let's begin going through the suit real quick here for both subscribers. As I said, it is a consensus of all the suits in the deck. Not so much as the lawsuit, which we're going to talk about next time, but in comparison to the rest of the suits in the acronym ASPIRE. Emancipation is that acknowledge when you have a look at that new moon card, Maya. You see that new moon is all about illusion and what is acknowledged about releasing. Okay, speaking of the lawsuit, it's about release. And what are we releasing? The mother we want to accept, the one we have, reverberated throughout each suit. And here culminated in emancipation with Maya, we see acknowledge MDT to release denial. We see with the crescent moon card of Inanna, what's culminated here is that self-inquiry energy of embracing the shadow. that sacral chakra of desire, our true desire, which is to be emancipated from it. And when we first think of it or first feel it, it's a little crazy. It's a little unacceptable because for many of us, it's about not being in the same place with the same people. That's not always necessary. No contact is not the only solution. But for many of us, for a period of time, it is necessary. And just envisioning that is challenging, especially if you're clairvoyant and you keep on getting visions. That's what you need to do. Inanna, embracing the shadow, self-inquiry, bringing us to that place of self-curiosity instead of self-judgment and condemnation. We have Mayat, moving on from self-inquiry, that is giving us the energy of blessings in disguise, that balancing energy that we experience when we do the work to process our energies, which is only made possible by defining and maintaining healthy boundaries. So that energy in the Mayat card and the Emancipation suit before Ra. Ra is the gifts, talents, and abilities I'm always talking about, and they begin to reveal themselves the more room we make in the release process that we do through these cycles. Every suit has the release law card, and when we see that and we apply the download Great Mother is intuitively giving us in our reading, we're able to not just proclaim our divinity, but apply it through specific messaging we receive. That Ra card, meaning sun, that light in that waxing gibbous moon energy. Refining, again, that refining our sophistication, our education, our gifts, our skills, those innate abilities this lifetime MDT is dealing with us to do so that we're emancipated from all of the gunk that we don't need. Of course, the resurrection suit is exemplified in Gildeptus, that full moon inner eye energy of synergy, that synergistic energy that comes when we do actually act to make release possible. We actually say, no further than here. This is where the buck stops. This is my boundary. Okay? This is what I'm working with right now. Allow yourself to test your boundaries, see what works, see it out, see how it works in the real world, see how it feels to you. And many times in the beginning it's going to feel very uncomfortable, but pay attention to the results that you're getting and you may be surprised. Now, those are the 6 cards. Each suit, I said, has 8 for the lunar phases. Of course, we talked about the balsamic moon card of emancipation, the download, all about that home, peace-free energy, that releasing those roles that we talked about, that we play up to, or we play into, or we expect others to always be. We want to equally be open to others growing and evolving and encouraging that, and letting people go at their own pace. Our first business is always our business. Our first business is always our business. Of course, the signature card of all the waning gibbous moon cards is Mother Mary. Of course, waning gibbous in acknowledge is Pachamama, earth, trees, fairies, getting out there, grounding. It is that Adi Shakti energy and self-inquiry, that connecting with the yin energy of the cosmos, that magnetic energy that allows us to have clear, intuitive downloads. Of course, that waning gibbous energy and processing is Mave. Follow the yellow brick road. Go forward, keep moving, keep going, keep doing what you need to do. Keep that accountability. Act on what you know. Use that fire and your desire to create the health, happiness, and wholeness that you need to feel happy, healthy, and whole. And of course, resurrection, that is Nefertiti, that waning gibbous energy of owning our beauty. Here, it all culminates, right, into Mother Mary, a waning gibbous of the Emancipation suit of selflessness, all about not giving of ourselves for love. That's the old way, the unchallenged, unexamined way that perpetuates MDT. Because when we don't challenge it, when we don't examine it, we pass it down. We justify it. But now that we're learning that a more empowered way of living is to do things not for love, but from love, we experience more of it. Do we know when it's coming, how it's coming, or whom it's coming from? No. And really don't even care, because it's always more than we need. It's always a syncopated rhythm, an unanticipated gift. And so you get to the point where it just doesn't matter. It's just coming. It's always coming. It's always coming, because when we accept the responsibility that we have to keep our hearts open this lifetime with MDT, or accept that it will be broken again and again and again, either way it's going to open. So instead of it always being broken with these false expectations of ourselves and others, with this holding on to this fantasy mother, with this spiritual bypass behavior, and not earning the state of our spiritual evolution. Yes, we are old souls, but you can make old food too. So what we want is to keep our hearts open. That takes a lot of work, doesn't it? Because we got a lot of stuff to deal with. That's why our first business is our business. And let them be right. There is a raw score trigger management that we do with each phrase, that you can do a little survey when you are dysregulated. Stop, do the survey, see which phrase in the divinity identity mantra you are out of alignment with, and you will see where you need to realign. Because this is the deal. We are free, wild, divine children. But when you have an MDT soul contract, the days of being directionless, when we have had enough experience to have a core belief in divinity identity, are over. Because when we forget, see, it's one thing if you don't know you are a divine child, but you know and you keep forgetting, that's a whole different experience. So these qualities that we're developing here help us to develop and enhance our capacity to experience it, to actually give our gifts, talents, and abilities from a place of love instead of for it, and to self-mother in healthy, happy, and whole ways. This is how we repay that karma. We were talking about in Saturn Moon, there's a karma that we have after these many lifetimes. Of course, there are actions that we've done that have not been in alignment with our divinity identity. Are we judged and condemned for it? No. It's just that we as divine children are held accountable for making it right. This lifetime or next, we will be making it right. And our birth charts speak to that. When you read a birth chart, that's exactly what you see, is what we're here to do. And we repay these karmas of ignorance by synergizing with Divine Mother, with Great Mother through this. And so let's be really aware that we are in sensitivity training. The Mama Drama Trauma Healing Oracle deck is the tool we've been given. There are many, but this is one that fast tracks us on self-forgiveness and on the forgiveness of others. This is what fast tracks us on forgiveness and the forgiveness of others so that we truly can experience our birthright to be happy, healthy, and whole regardless of what's going on. Now, it is a focused lifestyle, but that's exactly what we want. That is exactly what we need to evolve in self-love and spiritual independence. This continual release, this continual living in loving detachment from mama, the drama, and the trauma. So, learning to live by our intuition is something we are uniquely equipped to do and have the capacity for once we make the step beyond proclaiming it to actually applying it in our lives. I hope that's been helpful for you and that this is something you will learn to do because you do have the ability. But above all and most of all, remember, Great Mother loves you, and I do too.
Keep going. Keep going. You know you gotta keep going. Keep going.
I'm learning
keep going. Keep
to
going.
trust
You know you gotta keep going. Keep
my
going.
intuition more every day. And it's teaching me that I'm a divine child in every way. I'm learning to trust my intuition more every day. And it's teaching me that I'm a divine child.